Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, translated with commentaries by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. We're reading from the 6th Canto, Chapter 4. This is text 33. It's the Hamsaguya prayers. Daksha has the service or the duty of propagating the living entities, filling the universe with living entities. This is toward the beginning of the creation. He's been meditating on how to do this, but he's not particularly satisfied with the way things are going. So he's approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead to become more empowered by Him, not for anything material, but to engage in His service. He wants to engage in devotional service to the Lord. He wants to do His service nicely. So he's approaching the Lord, asking for these benedictions by spiritual potency, to get the mercy of the Lord, become empowered by the Lord, to engage in devotional service, not material activity, and get purified. So these prayers, they're available in the Vedas. He's not making them up, but he's reciting them and offering them. And this is the way that we also get purified, is by reciting the prayers that have been offered by the pure souls, reciting, hearing and chanting the messages of Godhead. Not that we make something up out of our brain, but we hear the messages from the realized souls, and they have recorded these messages in the Vedas, in the scriptures. And then when we hear them and chant them, then we get purified. So this is what Daksha's doing, and this is what we all need to do, is to hear and chant. This is exactly what Daksha's doing. He's offering these prayers. He's hearing and chanting. He's meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotional service. So this is we're reading from the 1975, first edition, copyright 1975, Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's available for a free download from the website krishnapath.org. So this is text 33. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is inconceivably opulent. This is Daksha continuing with these prayers, the Hamsaguya prayers. Who is devoid of all material names, forms, and pastimes, who is all-pervading, is especially merciful to the devotees who worship his lotus feet. Thus he exhibits transcendental forms and names with his different pastimes. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose form is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss, be merciful to me. Further illuminating the position of the Lord. He's inconceivably opulent. So this is where the problem comes in for the conditioned souls, the jivas, who they become envious of that opulence. They want to have what the Lord has. The jiva can become envious of the opulence of the Lord. And they want the opulence. But the Lord is the inconceivably opulent. All opulences belong to Him. All opulences, in their fullest. Everything belongs to him. He's the source of all opulence. So when there's some envy by the minute living entity, who's in quality the same as the Lord, develops this envious mentality and become a disturbance. And the Lord makes arrangements for them to be removed from his personal presence. Because this envy is like a disease. It just gets worse and worse. So in one sense, it's better that if this disease takes place, starts to manifest within the living entity, for that jiva to be removed from the Lord and let them act out their desires for opulence and control and power and strength and beauty. And give them an area of activity where they can try to act it out. So the Lord is inconceivably opulent. And he's devoid of all material names. We were talking about material names previously. How material names are designations. The name itself doesn't have any substance to it. All it is like a label. Water, you don't have water. Heat, you don't have heat. Smell, you don't have smell. Touch, you don't have touch. So spiritually, it's not like that. They're transcendental, nothing material. So Krishna's names, or George, George, you don't have George. You have George's designation. George is different from George. But Krishna is not like that. Krishna is non-different from Krishna. By uttering, he manifests in sound. He incarnates in sound. Krishna is there in the sound vibration of his holy name. So the Lord is devoid of material names. He's devoid of these, it's like a duality, the name and then the object. That doesn't take place with Krishna. Everything is absolute on the spiritual platform. So he's devoid of material names. His names are according to his pastimes and his activities. That's why the materialist can't really enter into understanding the Lord and the Lord's holy names. Because the Lord's holy names are according to his pastimes, his activities, his attributes, his qualities. So the name Nishingadev, the half lion, half man incarnation. He has that name. So materially, it's not possible to understand that. Or Yasoda Nandana, the son of Mother Yasoda, because these activities and pastimes are taking place on the transcendental platform, the spiritual platform. And Krishna is present. By chanting his names, the spiritual being is associating with Krishna and eventually enters into the spiritual platform completely, leaves the material platform of activity altogether, and engages in loving devotional service to the Lord. This is a great spiritual science. It can't be understood materially, because materially the name and the thing is different, but spiritually the name is non-different. So funny, you think about it, there's a little joke that goes around that there's a lot of noise in the room, so someone shouts, silence. But their shouting silence is just more noise. So silence designates something which it is not. The word silence is not silent. It's like a really good example of how that is. He's devoid of material names. Everything's absolute. Forms. We were hearing how there's two schools. There's the theist and the atheist. So the Mayavadi, the impersonalist, they're saying in their realization, the highest realization they've been able to come to without the mercy of the Vaishnavas, the devotees of the Lord's representatives, pure representatives who are engaged in devotional service. The highest realization, a person who is by their own mental abilities and their own scrutinizing, studying the material world, material activities, the highest realization someone can come to in that way is the spiritual nature of everything, that everything is actually energy, spiritual energy. The Brahmajyoti, which was the bodily effulgence of the Lord. So they will say that he has no form. The Supreme Absolute Truth has no form, has no hands, has no legs, has no senses, has no intelligence. Which is really kind of a dumb thing to say, but you say he has no intelligence. So they understand he has no material, but they throw the baby out with the bathwater. To say that the Absolute Truth has no form is true, in the sense that he has no material form. But spiritually, he has form. And it's not that there are no names in the spiritual world. There are names, but they're not material names. See, this sentence, who is devoid of all material names, forms, and pastimes, really that adjective, material, is used as a descriptor here, an adjective, can be placed before each of those. So you could say, who is devoid of all material names, all material forms, and all material pastimes, and who is all-pervading. There's nothing material about the Lord. It's not that he doesn't have names, he doesn't have forms, and he doesn't have pastimes, but he doesn't have material names, forms, and pastimes. His names, forms, and pastimes are all absolute. They never end. They're eternal. And they're all full of bliss and ecstasy. And there's no birth, death, or old age, or disease. He's on the spiritual platform of spiritual energy. It's a different type of energy from the material energy. And who is all-pervading. It's all-pervading. Everything's emanating from him, both material and spiritual. Everything belongs to him. He's the supreme controller. It's all his energy. We, the living entities, we are his energy. Everything emanates from the Lord. Aham sarvasya prabhavam atak sarvam pravartate. I am the source of everything, material and spiritual. Everything emanates from me. And he is especially merciful to the devotees who worship his lotus feet. He reciprocates. As they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. So the devotees, they're trying to please the Lord, they're becoming conscious of the Lord, they love the Lord, who is the source of their own being and everyone else's being and everything, everywhere. They love the source, the personality of Godhead. He's the source of all personality. He's the source of all pastimes. They love the Lord. They want to always be connected to the Lord through loving service and loving devotion. Always glorify the Lord. Always hear about the Lord. Always remember the Lord. Always be conscious of the Lord. And never forget Krishna. They become a little intoxicated. Sometimes they become a lot intoxicated in love of God. And sometimes they show symptoms. Hair, their bodies stand on end. They might become dizzy or confused. They become very happy. Or if they feel some separation, then they might become very distressed. So the Lord is the source of all pastimes. And He's the source of all personality. Right? All the different personality traits are manifest in Krishna. So, here we are with, He is all-pervading and especially merciful to devotees who worship His lotus feet. Lotus feet. Who do we know that has lotus feet? The lotus flower is very, very beautiful and very fragrant. It's a lovely, lovely flower. The lotus flower is so attractive. And it floats on top of the water. They grow on in the ponds and in the lakes, the lotuses. They have these big, huge, round, green leaves and float on top of the water. And the lotus flower shoots a little stem up, a little bud, and the flower is there on top of the water. So Krishna's lotus feet. And they say He walks, but He doesn't walk. And this is back to earlier in the verse. He has no material form, but He has form. So He walks, but He doesn't walk. His walking is not material. He moves, He walks, but He's not material. And He has feet. He has feet. But they're not material feet. They're lotus feet. And they're beautiful and they're attractive and they like the lotus flower. Fragrant. So devotees worship those lotus feet. And we see sometimes in the material world someone may fall down at the foot of someone. But they don't have lotus feet. They have feet. There's a song, a karmi song, a non-devotee songs, expresses the kinds of feet that the non-devotees have. It's these boots were made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. And these boots will walk all over you. The feet that are in those boots, they're not lotus feet. It's walking all over everyone else. Try to get ahead, try to gain power. It's not like that with Krishna. That's not the kind of feet Krishna has. Devotees hold on to those lotus feet. And His pure devotees also. They have the same qualities as Krishna because they're purely engaged in devotional service. So the pure spiritual master can take shelter of His feet. They're not material feet. They're also lotus feet because of the pure engagement. spiritual master, pure devotee, Vaishnav, fully engaged 100% devotional service of the Lord, and his body is completely spiritualized. Just like an iron rod, if it's in the fire, becomes red hot just like iron. So the pure Vaishnav is like that, fully engaged 100% in devotional service. His body is not material anymore. Nectar of Instruction, Upadeshamrita, also gives some good instruction on not to see the body of the pure devotee as material in any way, even if there's some quote-unquote defect, like some handicapped or some disease, so-called disease, should not see the devotee who is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness as being material in any way. Their body is fully spiritualized. So he's very merciful to devotees who worship his lotus feet. There's different kinds of devotees. They worship the lotus feet in different ways. Akrura, on the way to Vrindavan, to pick up Arjuna, to pick up Krishna and Balaram, and to bring them to the wrestling match, Kamsa's wrestling match. All he did, he saw the footprints, Krishna's foot. He didn't even see the feet. He saw the footprints of Krishna in Vrindavan, and he jumped off his chariot, fell onto the dust, and rolled in the dust of Vrindavan, just seeing the footprint impressions of Krishna's lotus feet. In the dirt and soil and sand of Vrindavan, the dust of Vrindavan, he saw the impression of Krishna's lotus feet. And the gopis, the most elevated, who had perfected worship of Krishna, who had to the utmost, and they placed Krishna's lotus feet on their breasts for Krishna's satisfaction. Though it appears to be some lusty behavior. And yes, they are lusty for Krishna, but not material lust, because Krishna doesn't have material feet, and the gopis don't have material breasts. So these pastimes are devotional service. We understand the position of Krishna, we can begin to relish transcendental pastimes of the Lord. So, he's especially merciful to devotees who worship his lotus feet. Thus, he exhibits transcendental forms and names with his different pastimes. So, as they approach me, I reward them accordingly. So that's not you approach me and then you get some job, good job. Oh, you approach me, then you get a good partner in life, a wife or a husband. Oh, you approach me, you get some good children. But there's that too, and that's going on for the pious living entities. They're approaching Krishna, and he's rewarding them. Okay, you want this, here, like Santa Claus. Okay, here's this, here's that. But really, we can see the deep significance of this verse explains what it means. As they approach me, I reward them accordingly, is that here he's saying, especially merciful to devotees who worship his lotus feet. Okay, so approaching Krishna, approaching his lotus feet. And how does he reward the devotees? He exhibits transcendental forms and names with his different pastimes. He personally engages with those devotees who are engaged in pure devotional service. They enter into a personal, loving relationship with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He exhibits his different transcendental forms according to how the devotee is approaching him. Prahlad Maharaj. Lord Nrsingadev appeared, and Krishna appeared as Lord Nrsingadev to protect Prahlad. In Vishnu form like that. And we see in Vrindavan, there are different relationships. He engages as the small son, the beautiful baby and child of Nanda and Yasoda, beautiful young man of Nanda and Yasoda, youth, not quite manhood, youth, as their son. And with the cowherd boys, he's a jolly good fellow. They're having a good time. Boys playing in the forest and in the woods, tending cows, having a good time. Playing with each other, mock fighting, imitating birds and animals, swimming, having picnics, fighting demons, having a good time. He's just one of the boys. He's a wonderful boy, and they've entered into a relationship with Krishna like that, in friendship, fraternity. And of course, the gopis, who they have amorous love for Krishna. Young girls, they have amorous love. Krishna reciprocates. So he exhibits transcendental forms and names with his different pastimes. So now he's appearing as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very recently, only a few generations ago. Approximately 500 years ago. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. With his pastimes in relationship to Sankirtan Yagna and spreading the holy names of the Lord. He manifested so many pastimes with the different devotees. We're so fortunate we have such good records. Diaries were kept and accounts were written. We have a lot of information. So fortunate like that. About his pastimes and activities as Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So Mahamsa Guhya prayers and Daksha, he's praying to this Lord, same Lord we're praying to. Same Lord Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is glorifying and representing and guiding and teaching how to approach. And the Acharyas, the Vaishnava Acharyas, the Vaishnava Sampradayas. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose form is eternal and full of knowledge and bliss, be merciful to me. Beautiful prayers. Daksha's right on. He made a lot of mistakes early on. In a previous birth, this is the same Daksha as the one who insulted Lord Shiva. He was seeing Lord Shiva materially and he insulted him. His daughter was married to Lord Shiva. And Daksha was uncomfortable with that because Lord Shiva supervises ghosts and hobgoblins and demons. Lord Shiva is not a ghost or a hobgoblin. He's a Vaishnava. But somebody has to do the service, and that's his service. That's what he does. And so he comes in contact with these unsavory characters. He's not affected by them at all. But he manages and supervises some of the affairs. And he's always being approached by them for help, and he has to help them. That's his service, try to help them in different ways. So he was married to Daksha's daughter, and Daksha was very uncomfortable with his son-in-law's occupation and appearance and activities. He didn't like it. He didn't see it in relationship to Lord Vishnu. He couldn't see that part. He was blinded. He was a little puffed up by he was a big Prajapati and a big performing sacrifices and engaging Brahmins and priests and sages and saints and demigods. They would all come to Daksha's performances. He's a little puffed up like that, materially blinded. Sometimes the demigods get like that. Indra gets like that sometimes. Lord Brahma gets like that. Become a little blinded by their own sense of power. So Daksha had that a little bit. Insulted and offended Lord Shiva. And Sati, Daksha's daughter, became so upset. She performed a type of suicide where she meditated and meditated so that her body burst into flames. And there is a way to do that. And that's what she did. And the whole thing was just horrendous, fighting and arguing, and everything was contaminated. And in the end, one of the servants of Lord Shiva cut off Daksha's head. I think that's who did it. And it wasn't Lord Shiva himself. Somebody was so angry at his master being offended and insulted that he managed to behead Daksha, and then Lord Shiva placed the goat heads, replaced his head with a goat head. So Daksha realized his mistakes in offending a Vaishnav and becoming puffed up with his own sense of importance, because now everything was devastated, and he's sitting there with a goat head, so... That's what happens. It has to happen. And go up against superior powers, you're going to hit the wall somewhere along the line. And that's what happened to Daksha. So, this is another birth now. Daksha is considerably purified, and he's appreciating the path of devotional service, and he's offering these beautiful prayers. So we see sometimes it can take lifetimes. We have these instances. This is another lifetime for Daksha. He's taken birth again. And it was described who he took birth from. Goodness, my memory. Because we're following these genealogies. He took birth from, we were just reading that. The Prachetas, the sons of King Prachanabarhi. The Prachetas were performing austerities underwater. When they came out, they saw the land had become overgrown with trees. And because of all their austerities, had a kind of harshness to them. And they responded by emanating fire from their mouths and eyes and burning all the trees. And so it was superseded, intervened. Soma, the demigod of the moon, who's responsible for the vegetation on the planet, came up with a solution. That description of Soma presenting the wife to Daksha. Yeah, okay, so that's how Daksha's wife appeared. But Daksha is also the son. I'll have to go back. I can't remember. Kali Yuga brain. Have to read so many times over and over again and really, really focus on what we're reading to try and actually remember. So this is this is Kali Yuga. In previous ages, they didn't even have to write anything down. They'd hear it once and they had it. They could just hear it once and they got it. With us, it's written down. It's in computers. It's on CDs. We're listening and listening and listening, and it's, how they say, in one ear and out the other. It's like nothing to catch it. It's very small receptor. It's like, it can't catch anything. It just goes in and then right out. So we keep hearing, continually hearing and chanting, continually.